I've been debating on whether to tell this story for a while, and I decided it was finally time to share it. This happened to me and my father a long time ago, when I was still in middle school. Me and my dad would often take camping trips whenever I had a break from school. On winter break, me and my dad went on one of our signature camping trips at a new campsite. I apologize sincerely, because I can't recall the name of the campsite for the life of me. And my dad doesn't remember either. Weird things started happening the first day. While my dad was finishing setting up the camp, I was roaming around near a small creek. Next to the creek, I could see these huge paw prints. They looked canine but almost elongated, and I could very clearly see long claw marks at the end of the prints. It had just rained recently, so I was able to see the prints clearly. I showed my dad, and he too was astonished by how large the prints were, but we eventually chalked it up to coyotes moving through. The second day, while exploring that very same creek, I came across huge, and I mean huge, claw marks scraped across the tree. I remember standing in front of them, racking my brain for what could have made them. They were really high up on the tree, about 7 or 8 feet up or so. And they looked fresh. I also began noticing that at night, the wildlife would get very quiet. No hooting of owls, or chirping of crickets. Dead silence. Sometimes, late at night, I'd hear these really drawn-out howls. They sounded like wolves but somehow human. I can't quite describe them. It's like if you took the groan of a man and the howl of a wolf and mixed them together. They were usually very faint and lasted for a couple of minutes at most, so I paid them no mind. All of these events were overshadowed by all the fun I was having. Me and my dad had a great time fishing, hiking, and just enjoying each other's company without being glued to our screens. But then came the 5th night. I recall the full moon, and the stars in the sky above us. Me and my dad were sitting next to the fire, and he was telling me stories from his childhood. When suddenly, we heard a twig snap. We both paused and looked in the direction of the noise, and my dad stood and quickly gestured for me to get behind him. I expected a coyote or even a deer to walk out, but what did I will never forget. 2 figures, one was 6 feet, maybe, and the other was a bit smaller, walked, or rather stumbled out. I couldn't believe my eyes, and my dad's eyes widened too. The creatures looked like dogs or wolves, yet they were standing on their hind legs like people. And they had hands instead of paws, with elongated limbs. But what led me to believe they were pups or juveniles, was the other figure emerging behind them. The same creature, but much larger, 8 feet at least. That must have been the parent. God, I still remember those piercing yellow eyes.